Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis. Thank you for tuning in, and you are going to be so glad you did, because today I have one of the most instrumental moments, a founder who has created some software that really hasn't resonated with me as strongly. Well, I should say it has resonated with me strongly as maybe two other softwares in the past that I still use to this day. So you're always running across new software and things that can do a variety of different marketing tasks, but this software was so different. So I wanted to make sure that I put it in front of you all in a way that you can see and understand just how long you've been waiting for this, even if you didn't know. So our guest today is none other than Brian Ragone, and he is the founder and CEO of Puzzle. Puzzle is the app, everyone, and he's helping teams visualize their workflows and systems in a fast and easy way. Can you all see why I was so excited? So everyone can understand how they work. He's helped visualize over 10,000 workflows to bring clarity and alignment across teams within organizations so they can make improvements to their operations with confidence. And he's being very modest on that bio, because once you can actually see what is happening with your operations, everything unlocks. And I'm not exaggerating. Everything unlocks. And in fact, he's found that organizations use upwards to 130 SaaS applications to run their business operations on average, yet most processes and systems aren't well documented. Right? Listeners, are you saying ouch yet? You're like, ouch, that's me. I don't have documentation. And watch this. And only one person knows how they work. And that's the person that built them. And I'll add to it, that person may not even be working with their company anymore. Okay. So I can't wait to dive into this. Brian, you know my affinity for you and the software that you've created. Now everybody gets to see why I'm so excited about this. Welcome to the podcast, Brian. How are you doing?
Chris, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And you said it best. It's almost like I gave you that intro or something.
Yes. And I want everybody. So let me tell you all, I'm spoiled. I got spoiled. And I can't take credit for this. I have to give a shout out to one of Automation Bridge certified partners. Morgan Edwards is the one that found Puzzle and said, "Hey, Chris, check this out." And it took one. I watched the Loom video, and it was it. I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for." So I've had the privilege to connect with Brian prior to this, get a demo and a walkthrough of the app. I'm now up to, I think I've got 50 or so objects in my own app. So I've started mapping out my own
Nice.
operations. We'll talk about that in the podcast later on. But Brian, I read the bio. We know that you have seen this problem of visualization. I'm a huge advocate of ensuring that you can see what's taking place digitally, because often it's invisible and we just experience the output of it. But
That's right.
bring us back to day one. Where did this come from? At what point in your journey did you realize that this was a problem worth solving with software?
Yeah, great question, Chris. And there was a very, very particular moment in my life. And it was actually back in 2017. I was running the operations for a 15-person small organization, and I had an anxiety attack because I was running this 15-person team with no documentation.
Mm,
No one in the organization understood how the operational big picture worked. And so I was the person to try to stitch together 15 different perspectives whenever we were trying to change any process, implement any new system, or even tweak existing systems.
Mm,
And it led me to the point of having an anxiety attack because your brain is not meant to keep and maintain 15 different perspectives at one time. Um, and we would have org-wide meetings because we had to get every single person's perspective on this one small topic or change that we wanted to make to the system, and it wasn't sustainable.
mm,
And I came to this conclusion that we have to write things down, and it has to be accessible to everyone in the organization.
yes.
So not only me writing things down, but other people documenting how they do their jobs, so that everyone can understand how the operational big picture worked. And I didn't know what the product was going to look like, you know, until 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
But from 2017 to really like 2022, I named this problem space puzzle. And the problem space is that there was no shared understanding about how the organization operated. And after that anxiety attack that I had, I really reshaped my thinking about how organizations are run. I started reading books like
Mm,
Holacracy by Brian Robinson, really made me think differently about how organizations could be structured. I called this thing, I coined this term in my mind, departmental dependency maps, where I would go
mm,
into Google Slides and I would make these department objects and try to show the teams how they're interrelated and what KPIs they share so that they're co-incentivized to work together towards some
yeah.
goal. Um, and that's what an organization is ultimately. Is it's a group of people, which has subsets of groups of people called teams, which have roles, which have goals that run processes that hopefully meet those goals.
Yeah.
And those are the components of any organization. Um, and so this realization just sent me down really a rabbit hole of becoming a student in this space, reading books, listening to podcasts, and learning jobs to be done framework and customer journey mapping and design thinking. And through all of these lenses of how people understand how some job gets done, I've created this product that helps you visualize how your people, process, and tools work together.
And I have to say, um, it I have without realizing what I was doing, I have tried to do what your app does in a variety of ways. So I want to talk about some of them and then just give you the floor and explain why you chose not to go that route per se and what makes puzzle so unique. So in the beginning, my first attempt, again, Brian, I did not realize I was visualizing a flow. I was just trying to explain something to somebody, and I end up creating it in, it may have been Keynote. It was Keynote at the time because I Google Slides hadn't been around, and I was just dragging some boxes and squares and pointing some arrows, and it did the job. And it did the job so well. The person that I shared it with, they were like, because it was their process. That was the thing, Brian. It was their process, and I was confused. So I was really just saying, "Hey, after this and this, is this supposed to happen? Because this is what's happening to me." They were like, "Oh my gosh, Chris, this is so great. Can you teach it?" And I was like, "No, I'm just a customer. I'd never done anything online, so I wanted to stay in the dark." So you go from the boxes and shapes and arrows, your traditional flow charts, whether it is Google Slides or Keynote, or we have platforms now, Whimsical, Lucid Chart. They exist, Brian. You can go into these apps,
Mhm.
draw.io. I mean, I can keep listing off many flowchart apps. Why do we need another one? and and what is the main difference between what puzzle does? Because somebody listening may say, "Oh, well, that's just another
Mhm.
squares and circles and triangle arrow thing. I use Miro for
Right.
that. I'm fine. I can tune out now." what is that differentiating factor or factors with puzzle that people really need to understand?
Great question. Great question. And it brings me to this idea that I had recently, which is the difference between what I call shallow documentation and
Mm,
deep documentation.
mm,
So shallow documentation allows you to look through the lens of like a two-dimensional space like Miro or Whimsical or Lucid Chart, where you see squares and you see connectors, but there's no depth to the documentation. If you want depth to the documentation, guess what you have to go do? You have to go to Google Drive, open up a Google Doc, which is linked to 5 other Google Docs, and go through this web of documentation, and then try to look back to the visual uh, perspective of it and piece things together and read more information and piece things together and read more information and piece things together. And uh, and so I came to the conclusion that each of these objects within these builders, what I call Lucid Chart, Whimsical, and Miro, everything whiteboards,
mm.
because you can go in there and you can do everything with these whiteboards.
Yeah.
You can have a coffee chat where everyone's putting their stickies in about ideas about what they want to do this weekend, or you can do product road mapping and stuff like that. Um, Whereas Puzzle, we built it with the intention of documenting systems and processes. That is its one use case. You can plan, manage, and build and monitor your systems and your processes in this tool. There are no stickies. There are
Mhm.
no places where you can doodle. Um, it is specifically built for this purpose. And so, what that enables us to do is make assumptions about what information needs to live on this step, right? And, there's finite components within organizations. Any organization is a collection of automations, meetings, sequences, emails, delays, SMSs, web pages, forms. These are what I call step types.
Mm.
And so we define what those step types are in a process in a system. And then you use Puzzle to very easily just select which type of step it is. And then it gets those attributes of what it is. Um, and it makes it very clear in the picture about where does this automation actually happen. Well, you get a nice pretty picture of the tool at the top. You get a good indicator at the bottom right hand corner that this is a meeting step that happens in Google Calendar, and then a name of the step. And ultimately what these maps are all about is getting shared understanding. It's
Mm.
getting buy-in from people who didn't build the map and don't understand the systems. That is the purpose of a diagram, is to show it to other people who have no idea what's going on so that they start to have an idea about what's going on.
Yes.
Um, and so what's the best way to do that? For me, I think it's creating a notation, a system that kind of puts bounds on how these processes actually work. So that if Chris goes into Puzzle and maps out a process, then Brian goes and maps out a process, then my friend Harrison goes maps out a process, and my friend Max and Michelle come in and map a process. All of our process diagrams fit the same visual notation, right? They have the same set of information on it, to where I'm not reading 5 different languages, right? Because ultimately, a
Mm.
visual is a language. You're looking at the
Yep.
shapes that you use and the colors that you use and what represents what. And so instead of giving people the freedom to kind of go off the walls with how they diagram, we've made assumptions about the best practices to create a beautiful and easy to understand diagram, because that is ultimately the end purpose of creating diagrams for systems.
Yeah, this is so good because I I had to really use discipline, right? Because in the past, when you're using your lucid chart and whimsicals and everything else, well, let me just talk about my transition here. I was a heavy lucid chart user, and that's because you could do everything. I could change colors of arrows, boxes, and this and that. And I needed it. I wanted it to look like a piece of art. I like my flow charts to be easily legible, and easy to follow, even to the most uh, amateur individual. And then something happened with Whimsical, where there is a simplicity introduced. I couldn't quite customize everything, and at first I fought it, but then I welcomed it and said, "Well, wait a minute. Maybe I do need to simplify it because the purpose is the process, not getting distracted with how to make it look nice and everything." So when you say each flow, each build, each visualization is a language. I've never heard it put like that, but that's exactly right. And I have brought people into my company and they've seen some of the maps that I've created in these other tools and they try to emulate it and it looks like a poor derivative. So naturally I kind of get turned off, but I hadn't thought about it as a language. And in a day and age where freedom is everything, I mean, I want to be able to control everything, Brian. Don't you put constraints on me. I felt a sigh of relief of the simplicity of puzzle. Because no, you're not going to go in there and change box colors and sizes and different types of arrows. Why? Because that's not the focus. The focus is not the design. The focus is get your process down. And we're going to control the environment in such a way that if somebody else built the same process, you would not even know. It would look the
That's right.
same. So now we're all on the same page, talking the
Yes.
same visual language. I love that. I love it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Speaking the same language and ultimately, like, imagine if, we had like Google Maps was different from for everyone. Imagine if everyone's phone showed a different Google Map where restaurants look like trees in
Yeah.
some other person's Google Map, and then another person cars looked like TV screens, and we would be like, what is this? You would throw it out. You would throw it out because it's hard to understand, you don't get it, which is what happens with Lucidchart, Miro, and Whimsical. These
Yeah.
charts, these flow charts, they get thrown out because you just temporarily use them to kind of gather your thoughts and hope that other people that you show kind of understand it, but no one really references back to those maps. And this brings me to my second differentiator for puzzle ultimately is we built puzzle as a map that you keep and maintain. So this deep documentation, not only can you click on this step and input details about what type of step it is, input contextual notes, embed Loom videos inside the step. It can become that visual playbook for your business. It can go even further. It's also a part of a relational database for your teams, your roles, and your tools. So as you map out your process, you're selecting what tool is used in this particular part of the process. You're selecting what type it is, and you're also indicating what roles are involved in this part of the process using the RACI model. Well, you can go to the team canvas and you can go to the tool canvas and pivot on those pieces of information to then see, oh, I don't just get this visual where I need to search where HubSpot is used. I can go to the tool canvas and look at the HubSpot card and see a list of all of the steps where that tool is hooked into your process. Same with roles and same with teams. And so it's truly a platform for change management where you can pivot on all the components within an organization: process, teams, roles, and tools. And anytime you want to unhook a certain part of that system, you can very clearly go to one part of the system, see exactly where it's hooked into the rest of the system, and make the proper changes to where that transition is smooth.
Listen, this is so important, everyone. I'm going to say exactly what Brian just said, and try to like put it in baby terms because I really want you all to get this. But real quick, hey, we've got a few comments live. Listen, we stream our podcast episodes live. If you want to be a part of the conversation as it takes place, instead of waiting for it to release in the app, you can do so by going to automationbridge.com/subscribe. Yes, /subscribe, and you'll be able to get our notifications when we go live on YouTube. Karanda at Carville Digital, she said, Lucid Chart, Miro, Whimsical, tried a bunch of things. She literally just said those are everything whiteboards. Just throw everything you want, on them. And she was also mentioning how trying to decide on what to visually notate is very overwhelming. And this is why this tool just keeps growing on me, Brian. It really does, because what Brian is talking about, everyone, is you go into Puzzle and you just start dropping your actions on there. And for every action, you can click on it, and then there's a little slide out window. For my Notion users, you're probably very familiar with the right slide out tray. And then there is where you can select what tool is responsible for that step, or tools. You can select multiple. And then when you select multiple tools, you can determine which icon do you want to display on that action. Now, let's just pause there, everyone, because I don't know about you all, but when I create my visual charts, my flow charts, I have a repository of logos from a variety of companies. So every time I drag a box, I have to go find a logo and put the logo of that app on top of the box. At the end of the day, it looks beautiful, right? It's great, but it is so tiresome and cumbersome to make that. So now in Puzzle, you just select from a drop down and you have all the tools there. Brian, I was pleasantly surprised because, I'm taking notes as I'm building. So, okay, let me just make sure if I come across something, I'll share with Brian so we can improve the app. And I said, oh, my tool isn't there. Let me let Brian know that my tool isn't listed. Then I said, oh, wait a minute. And it said add new tool. And you can add the tool, grab the
Yep.
logo, and now that's part of your Puzzle app. It's in there, and you can reference that tool throughout your workflows, right? So everybody follow me. You've dropped your step onto the canvas. You selected which app is responsible for this. You've given it a name, and now you have this note area where you can put any description, link anything in there. Even that has become a simple interface because you've got H1 and H2. It's not like you've got H6 up to H6. You can do all of these things where you give people enough rope and technology, they are going to do everything but tie a knot to help them. They're going to go hang themselves, their animals. You're like, what are you doing? This was not meant for that. Get off of that tree, right? So this one, you still keep some nice confines in every place so that you can truly focus on the process that you're putting in place. So imagine this, everyone. Let's just say you've got 4 boxes. One goes to your CRM software, one goes to Zapier, and another one goes to Calendly, right? For each one of those boxes, as Brian mentioned, it rolls up. It can be connected. I shouldn't say roll up. It can be connected to a role. This is next level. This is all within the canvas. One click away, everyone. One click away. You can now say, oh, for scheduling, that's my salesperson. But for the Zap that actually sends the information over, that's my marketer, right? So now we've got actions, tools, and roles. So when you go and say, let me pull up my marketer role, it will show all the actions that they're responsible for, as well as all of the tools that are required for those actions. Now, let me say this. Some of you have been struggling trying to find help and communicate the tasks that need to be done. Just by mapping out your process with Puzzle, half, maybe even more of that is done for you. Because if you've got your entire operations mapped out and the roles assigned appropriately to each box, you just go into the roles and say, oh, if I hire a marketer, they need to be savvy in these tools and they need to
Yep.
know how to do these things. Now, Brian, I'm free from just going online, carbon copying a job description of some digital marketer that
Yep.
sounded good, doesn't apply to me, doesn't speak to the tools or the operations I have in place. This is
Mm-hmm.
next level, and it comes from exactly what you said. When you focus on a app for mapping operations alone. That's it. No other
Yep.
distractions.
Yep, exactly, exactly. And there's a few features that I have as a part of a vision, and I don't share them often because I like to keep my team focused too
Yeah.
on kind of here and now and giving them just enough into the future of how puzzle will look. But this team designer, I have such an incredible vision for how this team designer can ultimately evolve, for larger organizations and small, where, in the app, I would like to be able to generate a job description automatically. And what information will it use to generate that job description? Well, it will be tied to all the tools that it uses.
Yeah.
And not only that, all of the steps which have notes inside them. So it can reference all of the details, the
Yes.
very granular details of your business, and generate a hyper specific job description that is tailor focused to exactly how that role contributes across one or many processes. Um, and you would be able to then make that publicly accessible and get people to apply right on that role card and manage your applicants through a series of steps to where when they come into the organization, they get placed in that role, they get access to all of the steps that they've been assigned to, which have the trainings in the sidebars. um, and that's a couple years out, but
Oh, I love it. I love it.
good feature.
Karanda mentioned she finally dove into puzzle the other day, and within 20 minutes she built out her entire tool library. So
Nice.
I want
Nice.
to that leads me to another statement slash question conversation point. Um, how do you recommend, and I've asked you this and I want you to share it for everyone. How do you approach the blank canvas? Somebody sign up with puzzle. I found myself here, everyone. Listen, you, let me mortalize myself. Some of you in conversation, you look towards me and I appreciate it. Like, oh man, he's figured it all out. He knows everything. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I'm never afraid to ask for help. So I emailed Brian because I was excited about puzzle. I created my org, automation bridge, right? Click in the box, this big canvas with nothing on it. And I just kind of got I was just like, oh, where do I start? So I emailed you and I
Yeah.
want you to share with our audience what is your recommended way of getting started with puzzle when you have that blank canvas?
It's a great question. It's a great question. And we're working on a feature such that when you add a new workspace, there will always be just one process. And that process will be called getting started with puzzle, with steps that you can click on, with sidebars that have looms of me walking through exactly how you can get started with puzzle.
Yeah.
So that's one fix that we're going to deploy pretty soon. The second way is we do have a template gallery, and that template gallery has one fully baked out process that you can use as inspiration for your processes. And that should serve as how a process should be properly documented, right? The tools are assigned, the roles are assigned to it. The sidebar has a collection of notes with loom embedded or scribe embedded with bullet points and numbers and that sort of stuff. And so those two templates slash resources should be good. The last part of it is we actually offer complimentary support meetings. So if you ever get scared by blank canvas, and this is actually a pain point for any software
Yes.
that's out there, is the blank canvas. The last component to this is that we are releasing integrations that help accelerate the build process, right? So building flowcharts, it's it's not for the weak-hearted. It's for the people who are dedicated and really want to invest the time into getting proper documentation for all of
Yes.
those benefits that we've mentioned earlier on our podcast, on this podcast. But we have integrations now where you can integrate with HubSpot. Um, we're releasing Make in about a week, and then ultimately we're going to release Zapier. You can integrate with these three systems, and they
Mm,
automatically create the steps for you,
mm,
linked to the tools, linked to the assets in the system. So for HubSpot integration, we in just one click, you can get all your HubSpot forms, all your HubSpot workflows, and all your HubSpot sequences created as steps. And then Make and Zapier, you'll be able to pull your scenarios and your zaps automatically. And those steps will be synced with specific zaps, with specific scenarios. And you'll be able to see enrollment data right in the sidebar about the activities that are going on in your system. And that's ultimately the direction that we're heading is we want to have Puzzle automatically create synced diagrams that help you monitor your existing systems, and then also be the system where you can plan around what exists to add on to that system over time.
This is, listen, everyone. I literally have goosebumps because I hope this is strongly resonating with you all. And I try my best to be objective on these podcasts. You all know that I refrain from saying, hey, go get this software, do this. I want you to make the intelligent decision on your own. If you want my strong opinions, you can always join the membership where I give that freely. However, I'm breaking my rule. I'm breaking my rule today on the podcast. If you are in marketing ops, and operations in any capacity and or digital marketing, you absolutely need to be using this tool. I am not exaggerating, and the benefits are so vastly great that I can't withhold such positive and affirming instruction from you. Okay, and here's what here. Did you hear what Brian just said? This tool will be able to integrate with the other tools that you're using and give you a visualization of what's taking place in them. And he said the word sync, which, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, means if I update something, it will reflect. If I update something in Make, we'll just say it will reflect in Puzzle as well.
Yes.
Listen, everybody, I just follow me. When is the last time your SOP automatically updated itself? Let me ask this. When's the last time you gave an SOP to somebody and was confident that they were A, going to read through all of it, and B, understand every step easily? I don't know if that's ever happened, because I don't believe that's the true delivery of SOPs. However, maybe people are creative, but this, to me, what you're saying, Brian, and you're leading this. You're the leader, because I've never heard anybody put it like this. This is the benefit of having a universal visualization language, UVL. Did we just create that? I think we just
You
created it on
did.
the podcast,
You
right?
just created that. I love that.
When we're all speaking the same language, now I
Yes.
don't have to say, oh, my integration into make.com, because you map your stuff this way, it needs to map it this way. No, it's all using the same visual language. And you heard it here first, folks. Oh my God, you guys got Nostradamus, Chris. You have he has arrived. This will be the language of visualization. This is going to be the language. We are going to see many apps and platforms mimic this, which, hey, we accept competition. It helps us improve. But I'm just telling you all, in all of my getting, in all of my learning, I just have never seen a operations focused app like this that has so much potential as well as current power. I'm going to read. So Brian gave you guys everything to look forward to. Watch this. Without any of that, I'm going to read to you what Brian said to me, and then I'm going to tell you how I eliminated the overwhelm. Okay. So you all may never have to deal with this, but at some point, what I'm about to read to you is going to be very, very important. He told me he totally understands the overwhelm. He said, I recommend starting with your most high frequency core processes and then work out onto the edges over time. And I sat back and I thought about it. I said, okay, what's my biggest, most important? And I said, well, the thing that's most important is the thing that's closest to the money. What is the process that's closest to money being transacted and deposited into my account? Watch this, everyone. So I start with one of my program enrollment automations. Brian, I don't think I shared this with you. This is the first time I'm totally unclothing on this episode. Tell me why, as Karonda mentioned, it took her 20 minutes to map out her entire library. Within maybe 10 minutes, Brian, I identified two critical holes. When I
Mm,
say critical, my definition of critical for me building is that there was no destination after the action. The action took place, information was captured, and nothing happened. I was in shock. I was like, how did I do this? Out of all the people, Chris, how did you do this? Well, Brian, this is what happens when you don't have a consistent means of visualizing. You're kind of
right.
building on the fly. Oh, I need to do this real quick, right? Marketing as you build, or I should say building as you market, and you just overlook things. It happens. It happens to the best of us. So using puzzle and your advice, I was able to identify breakage in my operations, which made sense in something that I had been seeing, but I've been ignoring. I was like, hey, I'm getting notification that this is happening, but nobody's taking the next step. Oh, I'll get to it. I'll get back to it. So puzzle allowed me to understand, oh, that's why nothing was happening later because it's not connected. Go back into my CRM software. Over 100 people have taken that action, Brian.
Wow, that's incredible.
100 people. So I'm like, one side of me is like doom and despair. How did I leave them hanging? But the other side is like, oh, I know now. And I can send messaging to them now. And I can make sure this never happens again. And I think for anybody listening, that's one of the strongest promises of an app like this is not identify the holes so that you can empower, enable your marketing to fix or your operations or your fulfillment. Last thing I know, I'm sorry everybody. I know I'm talking a lot, but I just have to communicate this. So after I've taken that advice with Brian, Puzzle has now I've got multiple monitors in my setup. Puzzle has become my second monitor companion app. Okay, second my SMCA. Just creating stuff, everyone. This means while I'm doing something, I just have puzzle up in my other monitor and I'm going back and forth. I'm saying, okay, since I'm already in this app, let me grab the URL, put it in my puzzle block. Right? Oh, since
Mhm.
I'm here in Airtable, let me not just link to Airtable. I'm using an automation in Airtable. Let me go grab the URL to that automation, put it in my puzzle block. Now, once I'm done with the process, because as you all know, you're gonna jump in a process in your business at some point. So I'm just documenting it on the parallel puzzle on the side. And now when I go back to it, guess what? I don't go in the apps anymore. I go straight to puzzle. I'm like, okay, what was I doing? And you all, I cannot tell you the time it has saved me, the clarity I'm now operating in. If I could, the magic thing for me is if I could snap my fingers and somebody would appear and I could have them for an entire week and just say, let me just tell you all of my processes. And then later it's all in puzzle. I mean, that's what I'm working for. But
Yeah,
I wanted to
right.
share that, Brian, because that's been my experience. This is probably going to be an experience very similar to everyone else before all of the new stuff that you say gets put in. And I just wanted to encourage people that has been working for me very well is doing it, document it while I'm doing it. It's just we've never had a tool to make it as simple as it needs to be.
Chris, very, very well put. And that's incredible that you had 100 people take that action. 100 people. And this is a bit of a life principle of mine, I would say, that's found itself in the product is it's about continuous improvement. It's not
Yeah.
about getting your process right the first time
Yeah.
because sometimes you're in a hurry. You need to get something out and it's not going to be the best and you just need to roll it out and let people start to use something. It's about continuous improvement. And so puzzle is really like your operational journal, right?
Mm,
I'm
mm,
not having such a good process today, but it's okay. I'm going to do this, this, and this to improve it, right? The same way that you write in your journal about how you're going to start to meditate and do
yeah.
breath work and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes you don't have good days. So you go in your operational journal and you just write it down. Hey, I need to do this, this, and this better in this particular part of the business. And there's commenting on the puzzle canvas. So you're able to
Yep.
make a little note for yourself. Hey, I know I need to improve this, to where when you do get an open day, when you do get a cancellation of a meeting, you can go ahead right into Puzzle and know exactly which parts of the process you can make small little tweaks to continuously improve your business operations,
Yeah.
so that you continuously define those little holes where 100 people will take actions that you weren't seeing, because your mind is not meant to hold information inside of
Yeah.
it. And so you need an operational journal, you need a second brain. And in my opinion, it needs to be visual, because
Yes.
people love visuals, right? Our brains are wired for visuals. They're not wired for memorization, they are wired for visuals. And so
Absolutely.
this tool allows you to create that visual, and keep your operational journal to where you can make those improvements over time. And it sounds like you were able to do that.
I love that terminology, operational journal. Listen, everyone, we've created like 3 or 4 sayings here just on this podcast. The one that I enjoy the most though is universal visual language. I think this is what the space has been needing, and once you have that universal language, everybody's speaking and interpreting on the same level. It just opens up so much more. One more thing before you go, Brian. Listen, everyone, it's this is hard for me to stop this conversation because I can keep going for hours on this one. But there was something that I found. What was it? Hold on, I lost my train of thought for a second. Um, I wanted to speak on. There was a feature, Brian. I got an email. I received an email for you. So, from you, you do this tool tip Tuesday or something, right?
Toolkit
Toolkit,
Tuesday.
Toolkit
Yeah.
Tuesday. And on this particular day, maybe it was the toolkit, maybe it was just part of the onboarding, but I received an email from you that said, "Hey, well, how do I map? Do I do in detail or do I do more overview?" And when I read that email, I was like, "Oh, that's a great question because I'm trying to figure that out myself." And then you go in the
Mhm.
email and you took a zap for an example, and you're like, "Hey, look, here's how the zap step by step would look in Puzzle. Here's how more of an overview would look in Puzzle." And you gave the pros and the cons of each. What would you say for let me say this. What is the method that you found works the best when it comes to Puzzle? Is it that real detailed, hey, every if else and wait, or is it more of a overview? I know at the end of the day it's going to be very uh, contextual to the business, right, and their
Mhm.
needs. But what have you seen in your experience thus far with are you seeing more of a benefit doing more top level or more detail?
Wow, great question. And users, when we get feedback around whether you build high level maps or granular maps, they say both and, right?
Yep.
They want the summary. They want to click on the summary and for it to expand out to the
Yep.
details. And there's a few features that we're working on that will enable some of that expand collapse functionality, so
Hmm.
that you can kind of look at your business, specifically like automations and workflows that have typically a collection of actions that happen within a given automation, like a
Yep.
Zapier. My approach is that you want a high level map as the playbook of your business, the thing
Yeah.
that people reference to kind of understand how processes work. If you are so salespeople, marketers, engineers, whoever it is, customer success, onboarding specialists, client service, account managers can go in and just get the high level. Oh, okay, there's a Zapier that runs here. I don't really need to know the exact details of what happens, maybe just the outputs, but I don't need to know every if, then, and branch there. And so
Yeah.
for the use case of playbooking, I think that high level maps is the way to go. If you're a system engineer, a systems architect, a solutions architect, anything like that, and you are managing, you know, the back end of Salesforce or the back end of HubSpot, and you're doing property level configurations on,
Hmm.
whether the automation changes this property to this value or that value. I mean, it's really granular. That's as granular as a business gets, is
Yes.
the options within a field.
Yeah.
Like that's as zoomed in as you can get. And so for system configuration professionals that come in all types of titles and role names, I think the low level maps are very valuable,
Yeah.
to really understand how these things are interconnecting there.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
best practice recommendation.
I've lived it in my time with the app. I think I'm just under 30 days. By the way, everyone, I'm a paid user. I didn't play with this whole, hey, maybe I'll test it out. Nope. Dove right in. Did annual, I think too, Brian. It's like, nope,
You
this
did.
tool is not going anywhere. And I am a both and. I would highly recommend starting top high level, get your main building blocks down. And what you'll find is that those who are more inclined to think logically and understand process, just in the process of building, you'll see that, oh, wait a minute, I want to show more of this process. And in this one, I could just put a box, and then in the notes, I can say what's taking place. And what it is for me is usually if it's like a page flow or something more general, that's fine. I could put a box for the page and WordPress or lead pages or whatever and put in some data in there. But sometimes when I'm passing data between, let's say, Airtable and ClickUp via Make.com, things of that nature, I want to display like, hey, Airtable is talking to Make and then Make is talking to ClickUp. That's more granular, everyone, but it serves its purpose for that specific thing. So when Brian says both and, it's because you're going to have both and. You need to have the top level, but you also, and I don't do it for everything, but there are times where you need to just kind of get granular because that flow of data is critical, and you want to make sure that's being accounted for. And to help you all, one thing, listen, you're just going to have to dive into the app. But the last thing I want to point out is, Brian, in this app, there's things called sections that encompass a whole bunch of actions. And these sections can be anything. They could be a department, it could be a particular flow, it could be a subset of processes, and you could name them. And once you have the boxes encapsulated with a section, you can move that section and everything within it moves around. So you have even a top level of the top level ability
Mhm.
to really build it out, because how puzzle works is when you zoom all the way out, you just see the boxes, the sections with the name. So you can say, oh, I've got
Right.
marketing, I've got sales, I've got fulfillment, I've got this. Then you start to zoom in, and the actions start to take place, and you start to see the skeleton per se. You get to see what's
Right.
behind the meat. So it's so much that I will just tell you all, if you can't tell my excitement and my utility, it's I am not theoretically excited about this and the promises and one day it can do. It's doing right now for me. I keep it open. I've got it bookmarked so that whenever I open up something, if I'm in it, let me go ahead and click right here. Next step is to start to train my team on how to use it. So everybody is populating this stuff out. Brian, people have heard me talk way too much, way too much on this. I just got excited, man. I'm sorry. I got excited, but I want to give you the floor. They've heard about this application. They're listening to me and you speak about it. It's maybe filling a hole that they knew was there. Others are contemplating like, ooh, maybe this is what I'm looking for. And others just want to try it out. They want to see if my excitement is warranted. Where should they go to sign up or learn about more for the app?
Yep. Yep. So you'll go to Puzzle's website, which is puzzleapp.io, puzzleapp.io. And there you'll see videos that will kind of walk you through high level what the tool does. You'll see a pricing page, and we have 3 plans. There is the 4 individual plan, which is our lowest tier plan, but it enables a very low price point so that people can go in and try the app at $19 with a 7-day free trial. And then there's the for organization plan, which is for people who want multiple editors within their organization to go into Puzzle and map collectively. And that also has a 7-day free trial. And then we have for agencies plan. And the for agencies plan is built for agencies who manage multiple client processes and system diagrams, and also need multiple editors to be managing those client diagrams as well. And so those are our three plans. All three of them have a 7-day free trial. And of course, you can reach out to me at Brian with an I, Brian, at puzzleapp.io. That's my email, and I'll get back to you there.
Perfect, Brian. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and explaining to us and showing us this amazing tool. I'm so excited and thankful that you thought to create this. I hope it's been extremely helpful for you all, listeners, and that you dive right into it. Everyone, until the next time because Brian will be looking for you online too. The next time we see you online, automate responsibly, my friends.